We're back with a new ICE arrest caught on camera, sparking protests. Federal authorities arrested a Tufts University graduate student from Turkey as she was on her way to break with her Ramadan fasts with friends. NBC News has obtained the video showing when Rumeysa Ozturk was confronted by plainclothes agents. Officers inform Ozturk to relax, saying they were police, before handcuffing her and escorting her to a black SUV. Now, according to her attorney, Ozturk has a valid student visa, and she was flown to a detention facility in Louisiana early Wednesday, despite a judge's order that she not be taken from Massachusetts while the court weighs whether she is being legally detained. For more on this, I want to bring in NBC's Stephanie Gosk in Medford, Massachusetts, and former Chief of Staff for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Jason Hauser. Stephanie, what more are Ozturk's attorneys saying about why she was arrested and where she is now?
Well, Anna, her attorney is saying that she's frustrated. She doesn't know more about why she was detained. And she tells us, as you mentioned, she confirmed that her client was flown to Louisiana early Wednesday morning in an apparent defiance to the federal court. The federal court judge who ordered that she stay here in Massachusetts until it could be decided whether or not she had been legally detained. That judge also gave the federal government until Friday to explain why she was detained. All we know from the Department of Homeland Security is that her visa has been revoked because, in their words, she showed support for Hamas, a terrorist organization. They called a student visa, a privilege, and that she violated that privilege because of her activities. Again, not providing any specificity on what those activities were. Here at Tufts, there are plenty of students who are upset, people in this community who are upset. There are a number of protests, one last night and a couple of more today, Anna.
So, Stephanie, she hasn't been charged with a crime then? What type of evidence are authorities saying then justifies this detainment?
They haven't said at all. According to her attorney, she's not aware of any charges. As you know, President Trump signed an executive order back on January 29th saying that non-citizens who participated in pro-Palestinian protests should be deported and have their visas revoked, Anna.
All right, Stephanie Gosk, thank you very much for that reporting. Jason, multiple plainclothes agents in masks making this arrest on the street. What kind of time and resources go into an operation like this? And is what we saw typical?
This is extremely atypical. Quite frankly, I think the American people are beginning to see the broad sort of stories within the immigration system and how they're now being used sort of for political targeting and retaliation. It takes hundreds of working hours to find and target, arrest, and detain an individual. It takes, as you saw from the video, it can take anywhere from 6 to 12 officers, even leveraging other federal law enforcement outside of ICE. It's very time intensive. And quite frankly, this White House said 2 months ago that they were committed to going after the worst of the worst. And it is very clearly now that the White House is sort of targeting churchgoers and book club members and, students in universities that are nonviolent, non-criminal, peacefully exercising their right to free speech. And clearly, the administration needs to articulate what actual threat these individuals are sort of creating in our communities. It's outside of, that's bigger than individuals that are actually criminals and convicted criminals that ICE should be targeting.
Now, a spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security says Ozturk engaged in activities in support of Hamas that are considered grounds for her visa to be terminated. We checked about a year ago. Ozturk had authored an opinion essay criticizing the university, asking for it to acknowledge the, quote, Palestinian genocide. Now, we don't know if that's what officials are using as evidence here, but how do you see it? Would this be grounds for visa termination?
Quite frankly, the political and sort of free speech and the discourse that we've had for hundreds of years in this country allow for individuals to, freely express their views, both political, religious, etc. As a sort of a counterterrorism official in my background within the Department of Homeland Security, the first thing I look to there is where within any of those statements is an individual sort of inciting violence or sort of driving or directing or facilitating sort of criminal activity. We don't see it in these statements. What we see is individuals expressing themselves in sort of the commons of a university, exercising their free speech. Now, if there is more to this, the department needs to be more transparent. But clearly, the sort of use of the immigration system, political stunts and retaliatory acts is happening. That is now the reality in which we live in. And we need to push back on the White House continuing down this path. There is plenty of work for federal law enforcement to be focused on going after drugs, gang activity, China, Russia, etc. Sort of going after peaceful protesters and folks, using their free speech on universities is absurd.
Yesterday, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem toured that El Salvador prison where the Trump administration sent Venezuelan migrants they allege are gang members. The administration wants the optics here. What are your thoughts about the secretary's visit to this prison in El Salvador?
One, the sort of outsourcing of our criminal justice and immigration system to a regime like the El Salvadorian government is beneath us. This doesn't create more capacity for ICE or Customs and Border or federal law enforcement to do their job. Actually, quite frankly, it creates a chilling effect across our country in the fact that somehow we are endorsing sort of moving nonviolent, non-criminal migrants and asylum seekers and outsourcing that to these very cruel detention facilities in El Salvador.
Well, maybe that chilling effect is the point.
Yep, absolutely. So as you see, quite frankly, in the last 2 months, violent criminal arrests by the Department of Homeland Security are down. Removals for folks that have final orders of removal within the immigration system are down. What we see them is sort of, instead of focusing on that work, what you see is these political stunts, and it is not helpful.
Jason Hauser, appreciate you joining us. Thanks so much.